Welcome to the Dear Doc podcast, where we will discuss the business of running a dental practice with a panel of experts. Now, your host, Dr. Christopher Hoffpower.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Dear Doc podcast. Now today I am joined by not just one, but two amazing dentists, and that would be Dr. Dave Roberts, who you guys all know, and we're going to have on again for a separate interview, and Dr. Smita Rewari. Did I say that correctly?
You got it. You're good.
Close. She was like, hand grenades. It's close. It's in there. So thank you both for joining me this morning. And you guys are part of what I like to call my business model mini-series. And what that is I realized early on that there are a lot of different ways of making dentistry work. But most dentists are only aware of very, very traditional methods of creating a business model. Now, Smith, you've done something pretty different than a lot of dentists do. And I'll be completely honest, I tried doing this whenever I first opened up back in 2013, and I didn't do a great job of it. So I'd love to hear how you made it work, and I'd love to hear your insight. And of course, what we're talking about is bringing specialists into a general dentist practice so that you can offer the full range of treatments that are available to your patients elsewhere. So talk to me a little bit about your journey getting into dentistry, and tell me what brought you to where you are now.
Thanks so much, Doc. Basically, I'm a new business owner. It's been 2 years. So for me, it's been pretty much a lifetime of associateships working for other dentists. And one of the biggest takeaways for me was mentorship that came from that. One of the most valuable takeaways from being an associate was having, if you're lucky enough, you got a great mentor out of it too, along with everything else. So when I set off to do my own thing 2 years ago, I took over a practice that was sort of an ailing practice and in the Houston area, and decided that we'd try to turn it around. And so really, truly, what I realized right off the bat was, ownership's isolating. It's very different, when you're coming from associate world. And it was really interesting to see. To me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, it just kind of came to me fairly early on. It's like, I'm sending a bunch of stuff out. I've heard from some networks that, you can have someone come in and do this for you. So I'm a big believer in serendipitous things that occur in the universe. And it just, honestly, I thought, and it kind of happened. First, it was perio that I'd been thinking of. And I literally had a periodontist walk into my office and drop a resume saying, hey, you know what? I'm coming back from maternity leave, this, that, and the other. And I'm trying to get back into private practice, but I want to do this right now. I want to be a traveling perio. So she was brought on board. I met Dr. Catherine Goodson through a network of women dentists here in Houston. And, that has worked out fantastic. And so she is a GP that has a vast tenure in doing all kinds of surgery. She does wisdom teeth with IV sedation for my office, and she's been doing it for quite a while now. I mean, the time that I've been an owner. So it's been a no-brainer for me. I'm happy to talk about the specifics on what I think are the pros and cons.
I'd love that. And also what systems need to be put into place to manage having multiple doctors who travel.
So one thing that we realized, when I say we, my husband helps me manage the business too, earlier on with some of these specialists, was you're paying the rent when you're there and you're paying the rent when you're not there. So the reality was that it would be really sweet if you could be sitting in your house even a lot of times, which was the case, that you knew that your office was being utilized to help your patients by someone you trusted. And it kept your patients, comfortable where they were, which is, they'd already formed a bond and a comfort level with your office. So I think that was one of the top things was, hey, let's bring someone in. So stuff's staying in-house, you're keeping more income for the office, and you're using up space that sometimes may not be utilized. It was really easy. To answer your question about how the actual thing worked out, Dr. Goodson, I think, follows with Dr. Roberts' philosophy of, honestly, she brings in her entourage, as I call it. It was so easy that I didn't have to do anything. I had to reserve, yes, one operatory for her if she shared time with me, which we tried to avoid. She was flexible. She said, hey, you're finishing at 4 p.m. this day. Let's schedule the surgery right after that. Oh, you're starting late this day? Let me see if we can come in earlier. So that was what we usually aimed for. But she brought in everything. They cleaned up, they sterilized, they did everything. And then they were in and they were out. It was fantastic. With some of the other folks, some of my specialists, we've had to share some staffing and coordinate it that way, which again, works out if you're not practicing at that moment. As in your office, you can spare the staff. So that's how we did it.
Excellent. So now, Dave, tell everybody how you're involved in this and why you're sitting here underneath me.
Well, I finished a residency, 2-year residency in San Antonio, GPR, in 1987. And of course, I didn't have any experience in business with dentistry, so I decided I would try to find a dentist who had a very good reputation in town and had a high level of, like a relationship-based practice that primarily focused on cosmetics, but the real business part of it is the customer always came first. And so I spent a couple years working as an associate in that office, and sort of, in some ways, because of my extra training, functioned as an in-house specialist, as an option for patients that didn't want to be referred out for things like root canals and implants and extractions. Right. And what I saw was, working on the inside of a practice like that, how much patients felt comfortable staying in the familiar environment that they called their dental home. And this was in the late 80s, early 90s, before there were cell phones and computers. And so I probably a couple years later, I was ready to sign a contract to buy a regular dental office. And I ran into a lady at the dental society meeting, and I was talking to her. She's like, what are you doing in your life right now? And I said, well, I'm doing a little bit of work in other dentist offices, pulling a few teeth, and I'm also getting ready to sign a contract to buy a regular dental practice. I'm not really sure which one I should do. And she goes, I can tell you which one you should do. You should do the traveling extraction. Your face lights up and you get excited about it. So I went home and I started thinking about it. And, what was happening was I was thinking about all my dentist friends that were working so hard to try to start a practice, and how I could actually fit in and be part of the solution by helping them take care of some of their patients that didn't want to be referred on. I was just giving another option. So I started doing that back in 1990, as I said, before there were cell phones and the internet. And over the years, I would have dentists call me and say, hey, tell me how to do a practice like yours. And so I started coaching some doctors on how to start a traveling practice. And I got so much interest that I started a small company called Virtual Innovative Practice Systems, or VIPS. And what we do is we help dentists that want to start a traveling practice. We help them design, develop, and manage the practice, so that, as Dr. Rewari is finding with Dr. Goodson, it's very, very smooth. Dr. Goodson comes in, she's using the playbook that we've developed over the last 15 or 20 years. And just in general, and I'll close by saying that when we develop the systems for a VIPS or a traveling doctor, our compass is what's in the best interest of the patient first, what's in the best interest of the office we're going into second. And if we do those two things right, we're going to have a wonderful practice in the end. And I think that's really our key differentiating success.
Well, I'll tell you personally that I also know that you're involved rather heavily in the local politics of dentistry and in local politics, period. And that you are one of the reasons that dentists are back to work. So I want to just officially take this moment to thank you and for including me in some of those maneuvers or negotiations or whatever you want to call them, and for kind of showing me the ropes of how to talk to the right people. So Dave here has been instrumental in helping you folks get back to work. So give him a shout out whenever you see this. So we now know you've got this, Smitha, you've got this practice that is it's a GP practice. It's 2 years old, and you're running it with these multiple specialists. So you've got a GP who limits their practice to surgery, and you've got a periodontist still, I'm assuming, the first perio who came in. And so it sounds like that position worked out well for her, and she just decided not to go and buy a practice, which is fantastic for you, right?
Correct. She started to do this for quite a few practices, and she now has regular practices around the West University area. So it's like a win-win, honestly, for her particularly. She does it more because she is a mom with kids and she gets to work her hours. She doesn't have to worry about the business after a certain time, which is a huge difference in ownership. So it's been great. The relationship's been wonderful. What I was going to say was, as far as there's a lot of dentists that, they'll say, okay, they do everything themselves, which is absolutely wonderful. I really think this works as a win-win for both types of dentists. You can have the dentist who just doesn't want to do everything and, like me, and is happy to bring in somebody to do that for them. But even when you have someone that's doing a variety of procedures, I always do wonder that, it's like the whole phrase of, are you really a master at everything? Are you really making the income versus the time increment of what you're using? Or could it be better, turned over to somebody else who could manage that much more efficiently for you, where you could put your time towards something that you're more focused on, whether it's cosmetics or what have you. So I think that, bringing in a specialist, bringing in, a GP who does surgery, all of those things have been remarkable in that way. The biggest takeaway has been the patients. Honestly, I'm trying to create a brand and trying to create a successful brand. And when I can tell my new patients, like, hey, guess what? It's all under one roof. Everything is here. Your mom needs a wisdom tooth, or your kid needs a wisdom tooth removed. Your mom needs an implant. You can bring them right back here. It's a cool niche. It's it creates a better brand, in my opinion. And patients have been responding very, very well to it. What I like to joke about is, from the doctor's perspective, it's a lot. I talked about the mentorship, but my specialists have been so wonderful. They're like, hey, you want to look in and see how an implant's done? And I was like, oh my God, this is great. They're very forthcoming in their ability to, it's CE literally in your office. All the time. Why would you, it's awesome. So I think all of that's been wonderful. In those areas. And one of the other things has been just that the network, you just talked about how Dr. Roberts has introduced you to certain folks and, trained you in those areas of how to communicate or how to network in that area. It's the same thing, through Dr. Goodson, we were, every time we had a question, okay, it's a HIPAA, OSHA update, there's this, that's that. These guys just have it together. They have to, right? Based on what they do. So this is a resource right there within arm's reach, where normally I'm on the dental threads all the time and reading, and it's interesting how we're always kind of scrambling a lot of times, and the threads have been wonderful in that way as a resource for dentists. So here's someone, a live person, probably has done this, more than you, longer than you, and they're there for you. They have your best interests at heart. So they take care of you, your patient, and your office like it's their own. And, so you can't match up to that. So I definitely have nothing but good as far as.
So let's talk a little bit about the financial aspects of bringing specialists in. What does that look like so far as their salaries? Are they paid on production? Are they paid on collections? Are they paid a day rate? So how do you handle that?
Ours is pretty much, it's been the same for across the board. It's been, we pay on what our a treatment plan that we put up that we expect to collect. So, production. And it's a flat, rate that we've had with everybody. It's pretty much, it's 50-50 that we do. They bring all their own supplies. We provide disposables. In some cases, we do provide a staff member. I guess I could have negotiated more in the cases where, you provide the staff member, and I could have nitpicked and all that. For me, honestly, it's been a win-win. So I feel like it's been worthwhile in terms of what all we've been able to keep in-house and what we've been able to get out of it. We've collected successfully. I think if you have someone good in the front, you will make your money back. So it's not been an issue.
Excellent. So Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business model and how it runs, so far as how you manage all of these traveling doctors, what standards you have to have and what systems you have to manage all of these people spread out all over the state. Now, I know that your business model is very, very different from most dentist business models. And so it intrigues me. Talk to me a little bit about it.
Sure. What we do is we take and work with dentists that want to create their own traveling practices. And because because I've made every mistake in the book over the years, we serve as their coach. So that what I'll say to a dentist that's thinking about creating a traveling practice, hey, you can learn in one of two ways. You can either learn the trial and error method, or you can work with a mentor or a coach. And for the ones that want a mentor or coach and don't want to learn by fire, we say, hey, look, we've worked, our team of doctors has worked with thousands and thousands of, we call them host offices. And, we know the touch points of how to stay in the office. So it's really easy to convince a general dentist to let someone work in your office. The hard part is not getting kicked out. Because if things don't go smoothly with the front desk, or you leave the operatory messy, or you show up late, or even if it makes it harder to schedule because you're pulling away one of their assistants, there's a lot of little things that can get you kicked out of an office. So what we try to do is make sure that before a traveling doctor starts their practice, they have all the back office systems and the infrastructure. So then they come in that first time, they blow everybody away and just, wow, that was really smooth. And just as one of the things that we use as sort of our coaching premise is that when you go into a dentist office, you need to be feeling like you're a guest in their home and they've invited you over for dinner. So you don't start telling them what you want to eat and what you need. I'm not gonna come to your house for dinner unless you have chocolate cake. And then the other overlying principle is what we call win-win-win, which I mentioned earlier. That is, when you're thinking about a policy that you are going to recommend to a host office, think first, is it in the best interest of the patient? And I think you'll find when you do offer having these procedures in, 80% of the time, your patients will follow through. Because as a general dentist, when you start referring out, there's a little bit of resistance.
Right.
And that resistance goes away when you can say, hey, I'm going to personally introduce you to Dr. Goodson. I'll be here. Susie, the front desk person that you're used to working with, she'll be right here. So that's basically what we do is we help dentists. And by the way, in our business model, the dentists own their own practice. That is, we don't own their practice.
Right.
We coach them to the point where they have a higher level of success when they go in. And part of my passion for this is I don't do a lot, but I do some lecturing to dentists. And one of the things that I try to encourage general dentists in particular is that they're the trust building specialists of our profession. And building trust in the minds of dental patients is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world to do. And if you're good at trust building, it's hard to be good at trust building when you're trying to be a jack of all trades on everything, you know? Mm-hmm. And this is what I think Rewari was speaking about earlier about, you know, hey, let's pick the things that I'm really good at, and it's nice to have somebody else come in and fill in. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question.
I think also just backing on that, just you know how a lot of people talk about the second opinion. I think it really gets a lot of you can make the trust stronger or reinforce it with the patient when, you know, they're sitting there, they're unsure about something, right, and then you have this other person weigh in that is coming from a totally different place, has a different set of credentials, but the patient can tell, okay, there's this like all-encompassing team, I'm in good hands. I mean, it's the same thing that you'd feel if you went into a hospital and you saw that network. I honestly think that's how medicine should be done in an ideal world, that, you know, people communicate and know what's going on and everyone's in the loop. And that's just the same for dentistry.
I absolutely agree. I couldn't agree more, actually. So, you know, and there's one thing I think that you're not pointing out, but I think that when I say it, a light's going to go off and you're going to either have forgotten to say it or you haven't realized it yet. And that is whenever you have another set of eyes, particularly with a slightly different skill set, as you watch them and as you hear them, you begin to think differently. And all of a sudden you're seeing treatment, even if you don't do it, you're seeing treatment that you never saw before. You're seeing problems with things that you never thought before. Your worldview has opened and you become a better doctor because of it.
100%. I'll let Dr. Roberts talk.
Well, I mean, it's just something that, particularly when you're starting a practice and you're a younger doctor, or you decided, you know, hey, I'm going to have a one doc shop, having another doctor there face to face in collaboration. I mean, there's just no way you can't both learn something from one another. And, you know, that's part of the joy of being able to practice this way is the collaborative part, the reassurance part when you're sitting there with a patient and you know, you're trying to explain something, and then I can just, you know, pull the host office doctor back in and say, hey, she's got a question for you. You know, it just you know, it's a different model. I mean, I'm not saying it's the only model, and certainly it's not the only model. We certainly need specialists to have, you know, their regular office. Right. There's no doubt that that's still a big part and will always be a part of our profession. But this is for a segment of the population. You know, it's just, it kind of paints a little bit, gives us more tools to work with to meet the variety of needs our patients have. And absolutely. if I could, Chris, just yes. One thing, you know, in this particular time right now, you know, when so many things are changing and everybody has the concerns of overhead going up, you know, for those doctors that are starting their practice back up right now, this could be for them, for some of them, part of the solution to some of the problems they may be facing over the next few months. Patient confidence, overhead, that sort of thing. Right.
So the question is, if someone wants to, oh, and by the way, I should probably, before I go forward with asking you this question, I should say my disclosure statement is I have no disclosures. I don't make any money from referring someone over to Dr. Roberts. I just very much respect his business model. And I've heard such amazing things from people who've used him. In Dallas is evidently where you started, because everyone I know out there uses you. And also some folks down here in Houston. So I just wanted to bring him on because I thought that this was really a great opportunity for a lot of doctors as we're reshuffling the deck here and trying to figure out what game we're playing. It's helpful to have as many tools as possible at your disposal. So Dave, how can they get in touch with you if they want to explore the idea of what it looks like to bring in a specialist, or they want to bring in a GP who specializes in surgery only, and they want to be able to offer more procedures than they're capable of doing. Or if, as Dr. Smith said, they just want to make sure their power plant is working 24 hours a day, or as close to that as possible. How do they get in touch with you and get this process started?
Yeah, Chris, we have a website. The website is www.vipsdental.com. And on the website there, if you're looking for someone to come in and work in your office, you can click on a button there. Or if you're interested in starting your own traveling practice, we have some folks that can kind of go over that with you as well. But it's vipsdental.com.
Fantastic. All right. So vipsdental.com. And how long does the process take to get your office ready to have your specialist in? Walk us through, let's say day one, I call up and I say, hey, Dave, you blew me away on that podcast. I realize I'm only working 3 days a week and I've got 4 days a week. My practice isn't making money. How do I get signed up? Talk to me. So what are our steps to go through, just so that people have an idea of what goes into the process of bringing someone in?
Well, the first step would be I would ask you or someone on your team to send us an email with all your contact information. And then we would put together one of our standard new doctor packets, which includes all the forms we have. Everything will be customized with your address on it. So it will feel immediately to the patient like all the forms and everything that they see have my name and your address on there. So it makes them feel like we're a part of your office. One of the things, if I could just real quick divert for a second, if you want to, you can look at this business model as, instead of a traditional associateship where you actually marry the associate, in this case, you're just dating the associate.
Speed dating, man. It's speed dating. That's the hip new thing,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Okay. So get back to your question. We're going to send you an email with absolutely everything that you need. Okay. There'll be about 5 or 6 documents on there. And for people that like to read, that's all they need, because everything's in there, because we get asked the same questions over and over and over. And we keep adding to these documents. So fee schedules are in there, post-op care's handled, how it's handled, what dental supplies we don't provide and what we do. I mean, literally everything's in there.
So in full disclosure, I've had the opportunity to see that packet, and I've been suggesting to Dave for years that he creates an audible version of it, like a little book on recording, because it's huge. It really is. And there's a lot of information in there. It's a very well put together package.
Yeah.
Dave,
so
Dave, I just want to officially say you've got a nice package.
All right. We're just going to skip right over that. But no, let's go with, so for the people who don't like to read a lot, we have treatment coordinators that are specialists in working with the host office receptionists. And these ladies have over 20 years of experience in working with hundreds of front desk folks. And so for the ones that don't want to sit down and look through all these forms and everything, we're just a phone call away. So that's how easy things can be to get started, is through just 1 or 2 email exchanges. Now, a lot of doctors, on the other hand, host offices, prefer to start by having an eat and learn. And so our traveling VIPS doctors are coached and have access to coming into your office and doing an eat and learn with your entire team to introduce the systems and how things work, and ask questions about how things work. But just on a big picture, it is exactly the same process that would use if you had an associate and that associate was part of your practice. The only difference is we're not there full time.
Excellent. And so, Dave, what all services does your company offer? I mean, obviously, Dr. Rewari, I keep trying to say her name correctly, and one of these days I'll get it. What's that?
Said it perfect that time.
Thank you. I'm not rolling my R as much. You squinted like you were very displeased by my R rolling. So Dr. Rewari was telling us a little bit earlier about this periodontist that she had met, and it was outside of the circle of what you do. So I want to just clarify, what types of specialty service can people get by going through your company?
Right now, we focus primarily on general dentists providing oral surgery services. We have 2 oral surgeons on our team, 1 periodontist right now. But we're starting to, expand to other services. So that's currently what we have right now.
Okay, fantastic. So are you looking really hard for endodontists and looking for periodontist oral surgeons? Can they contact you if they're looking to form a traveling practice? Are you looking for just very focused GPs? Like, let's say I'm a GP. I don't want to go back to school to become an endodontist, but I really love endo. Yeah, God bless you guys. And I want to travel around and do endo for everyone. It is my wet dream. Talk to me about how they get involved.
Yeah, basically we can help any doctor that wants to create a traveling practice. Obviously, doctors can create their own traveling practices all by themselves, but what we can do is provide the expertise of not being able to have to fumble over mistakes, because I actually started it myself. I made all the mistakes. I started out without bringing my own assistant, not having supply lists, and I was just, over the years, I was losing post offices that were friends of mine, and I didn't really understand why. And over the years, I've figured all that out, and so that's what we're looking for. The other thing I'll just say is if you are a general dentist and you're looking for someone to come in your office, one of the things we don't do is we don't work with doctors that have their own office and intend to keep it. That is, we think it best serves the post office and the patient to work with a traveling specialist who is committed to doing it full time. That doesn't mean they have to start out doing it full time, but we want to make sure that their long-term goal is to have a traveling practice full time before we start working with them, because we don't want that traveling doctor to be a temporary sort of parasite off the post office. We want them to feel they want to be committed to the process for a long period of time, because that's what happens frequently when you're working with a specialist whose specialty practice isn't going very good and they're just doing it part-time. Then they're not really focused full-time on it. Then it gives your office and your patients a bad experience, so that it makes it harder for us to come in and say, hey, this really does work if you do it right. You know?
So how does that relationship work between you and the specialist? And show us the secret sauce of, so that any specialist out there, any GP who wants to limit their practice to a specialty service, say implants, how does that work for them between the two of you? Can we get into that? Like, is there a monthly coaching fee? Is there a startup fee? Do you get a percentage of what they make? How does that business model work?
Well, generally, what we provide a we provide sort of the back office systems, and I like to say we're like your virtual front desk. So we help you with your billing, your receivables, your payroll, and then we also provide that kind of ongoing coaching for as you're going down the path of growing your practice, what works and what doesn't work, and so our relationship with each host or traveling doctor, we call them client doctors, is customized just like you would customize a treatment plan for implants. So it's a collaborative process.
Okay. So on the business side of things, or do you not want to get into that?
It's basically a percentage. We charge a percentage of their collections.
Okay.
and that's basically it.
So is there like any kind of startup fee they have to be aware of, that they need to save up money? Because I know there's a lot of people who are going to be changing lanes right now, because this is a really good time to change lanes. And for some of them, it's going to be a really bad time to stay in the lane they're in. So
so if you happen to come to us and you're already got a traveling practice going, that's going to be a different process than someone that's starting from scratch. Okay.
Right.
So we have the expertise. If somebody comes in and says, hey, look, I want to sell my general dental practice. I've never done any traveling. I don't know anything about it. There's a lot of coaching that goes on before then. We have like anything from internships that we offer doctors, where they might travel with me for a month. We have other situations where they may come in and just spend a week with our back office team going over things. So it's a customized situation. Again, I go back to, if you have an implant patient, what do they need? So one of the first things that we do, I like to the question you're asking, I like to transfer into what we're familiar with. We do sort of like a diagnosis and treatment planning process with each individual doctor, find out what their goals and aspirations are, and then we collaborate on what works best for them to reach their goal. And just like if a patient has an unrealistic goal, you might say to them, hey, I can't take care of you. And we have doctors come to us all the time wanting to do things, and it just doesn't fit into our model, and we'll say, hey, we can't help you. So yeah, it varies per circumstance.
Fantastic. All right. And my last question is, are you accepting new clients?
Yes, we are.
Okay, fantastic. So guys, reach out to Dave Roberts at VIPS Dental or Dentistry.
Yeah. No,
VIPS Dental. And you'll be able to find out a little bit more about bringing on your own in-house specialists and making those chairs produce some money while you're at home sleeping. Well, thank you for joining us, guys. I'll give you the last word. If there's anything either one of you wants to say before we go, Dr. Rewari?
I think to me, like I said, it just sums it up in the conversations I've been having with Dr. Goodson recently in light of everything that we're all dealing with. And it's just the text messages in terms of, hey, let's get a game plan going. Let's figure out how we're going to market you again. Let's help you get back on track. I mean, this is your partner. This is your supporter. This is your cheerleader that, you're going to make more money together. You're going to have more resources in between, within having this person in your network. And so, like I said, win-win all around. It's been wonderful. And, I look forward to more collaborations like I've had.
Excellent. And Dave, I'm going to actually ask you to speak specifically on something real quick as we close. And that is the importance of organized dentistry and becoming involved and doing what you do.
Well, Chris, it's as I was thinking about answering this question, I was thinking about the two biggest parts of me with respect to my professional life, and they all center on one thing. That is my heart and passion for my dental colleagues, and being a dentist is not normal human behavior. I mean, it is just not normal human behavior, and it is tough. And I've probably worked in 400 general dentist offices in my career. And by far the vast majority of them work so hard to do the right thing for their patients. And so this passion I have for helping other doctors create traveling practices, I feel is a solution to, part of a solution to one of their problems. That is to not do everything, absolutely everything, and try to become a better trust building person to help the business grow. So on that side of it, that's how I try to help out. On the other side of it is the regulatory side of it, and that we get bombarded by things and like, what happened? How did that happen? And so another part of my passion has been to get behind the scenes and find out how all this politics and how the regulatory environment works, And it really is critical to get involved in the process, because we want to stick in our own little dental office, hoping that nothing changes, but that's just not going to be the case. It's always changing. And in order to be part of the change, there's a saying in politics that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And since we don't have time to be sitting down in Austin all the time, and if we want our voices heard, the best way to do that is to get involved in organized dentistry. And if that's something as simple as just paying your dues, I mean, that's better than nothing. But there's nothing better than actually getting involved in the actual process of organized dentistry and understanding how the process actually works. And then if you want to go to the next step, find out how the political process works. Because at the end of the day, you have a driver's license that says, hey, you can drive, this vehicle at this amount of speed or whatever, and the government can take away or add to those privileges. Our dental licenses are the same thing. That is, they can take your dental license and make a rule or regulation that causes your dental license to be less valuable. Okay?
Absolutely.
Or affects your ability to take care of patients, which we are seeing right now in an unprecedented way. So everything that you see that I'm doing on both sides, the clinical side and the regulatory and the TDA side, is all based upon the heart I have to help my dental colleagues. And it's, it may sound corny, but it's true.
Well, there you have it. Dave likes to speed.
Speed?
No, you have so much energy. Sometimes I think you're on speed, man. This guy, he gets so excited about, and I'm sure you could tell, those of you who are watching video, whenever you talk about politics and helping dentistry as a whole, he lights up. So again, Dave, thank you for everything that you do. And thank you both for joining us today for another episode, the 31st episode of the Dear Doc podcast. And thank you all in the audience for joining us as well. I hope everyone is ready to get back to work as we record this. Today is our first day back. So have a fantastic rest of the year. And let's all hope that nothing like this ever happens again.
Thanks for listening to the Dear Doc podcast, your source for the business and legal questions associated with your dental practice. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dear Doc podcast on all major platforms.